Hey there friends, and welcome to day 6 of our 12 Days of Christmas in July tutorial series here on my channel. If you're just joining in, you can find links to the first 5 days at the top of the description so you can get caught up. And if you're new around here, I hope you will consider hitting that subscribe button to join our crafty little family. Don't forget to visit us on Instagram for daily holiday crafty inspiration. For our project today, we're making this very chunky mini album with faux tab top folders. There are loads of pockets and inserts and all of these beautiful layers of patterns with my journal card cut aparts. So each of these pages will have a set of the journal cards, a folded insert, and a regular insert here tucked into the tuck spot. So that's what we are making today, and if that sounds good to you, then stick with me and we'll make it together. And just a reminder to watch out for the question of the day. Now let's get started. So we're working with the Sugar Cookie Christmas collection from Prima. This is a Frank Garcia collection. I have the 8x8 paper pad as well as a few sheets of the 12x12, and I picked this up last year. This is all I have left of it, and so you can see I don't even have a full size page here in this paper pad to show you. Here is where I'm at for scraps, and you know I can just combine these to make some nice sweet and simple greeting cards. So the plan is to create my pages using that pattern paper and having the tabs on the side. And like I mentioned, I don't have a full sheet to show you, so I'm just going to demonstrate with this piece of white cardstock. I drew a little arrow here so that you could see the directionality of the paper would be going up. So the first thing I want to do is clip this page down so that it will be the right height. I want my book to be 6 inches high. And you see I've got my arrow going in the right direction. Next thing I'm bringing in is my scoreboard, and I did get a comment last week about the story behind the chunk that was missing out of the top, and it's just that I dropped something and it fell on this, and this fell on the wood floor and it broke, and that's all I have for the story. It's not anything fun or entertaining, but I did send it to the tool hospital today just for a little bit of a facelift, and so it doesn't look so bad. I am missing that pocket where the tool would fit, but we can work around that. So the next thing you want to do is make sure you keep your eye on the directionality of the paper, and I'm going to measure this piece that is now 6 inches high by 8 inches wide. I'm going to go over from the left and score it at 6 inches. I'm gonna go ahead and crease that a few times just to get a good crisp fold. And then I'm gonna come over only 1/8 of an inch. So 6 1/8 is my second score line. That will help us to build in the space we need for all the paper layers. So I've got one more tool to use, and I've got my paper here with my score lines. I flipped it over, you see. So now this flap is going to be on the left-hand side, and you'll see why that is important in a minute. But I want to have some tabs on the end, and so I'm going to line that up and use this just as I would to make tabs, and I want to slide this over until I get to 2 3/4. That way I will have enough room for some trim to go between those tabs. So the next thing I'm going to do is bring back my guillotine paper cutter, and I'll just go ahead and position this where the indentation meets the very edge of that cutting blade. Be so careful putting your hand on this side. I've cut myself enough times to know. So I'm just going to cut down until that tiny sliver falls off. So you've got a tab that is on the top, and you keep your pocket on the left. Now the second page and each alternative page will change the placement of the tab. So when you get to the next page and you need the tab to be on the bottom, just flip it over and repeat that process on the other side, and then when you flip it back, you'll have a tab down here as well, and then this is going to act as your pocket. I did go back and forth in my room quite a lot this morning as I was cutting the pieces for this, just so that I could make sure I had my tab in the right place so that I could alternate them as it goes along. So the next thing I want to do is go ahead and fold that right on the score line. So the 1/8 of an inch is not part of the pocket. This is going to be the pocket where it is joined on to the page. So I've got the piece that I have cut from my pattern paper. This is ready to add to the booklet that I have started so far. So my glue line for this set of pages is actually going to be on the book itself. And you can see that I have already adhered quite a few of these together just to be prepared. So it helps to slide this over now so that you get the edge exactly on the side here so that you know exactly where your glue needs to land and your pieces need to come together. So this is the trickiest part for me. You all know that I am not the best friends with wet glue, so I'm using a lot of discretion. You don't want this to splooge out all over. Not a good place for your double-sided adhesive. It will take up a lot of room, and it will also probably not hold as well because you're going to be putting a folded insert into this pocket. So see, I am bringing these together where the 1/8 of an inch will be on the top, not inside the pocket. I hope that makes sense. And go ahead and press this into place. Because you don't have that tape holding it together, you are going to have to make sure there's a good contact while the glue sets up. If you have a heavy block or a book, you could put that on there as well. And I am going to be using 8 pages of my collection. You can use as little or as many as you like. You just have to keep in mind that will change the depth of your spine. So that will be the one measurement you have to adjust if you want more or less of those. So now I have my first page on. You can just shift these over to get your folds nice and straight and even. And you can see that I've alternated those tabs, so I have them going in each direction and they're easy to flip through. So this portion that wound up to be glued from the previous page, you see we put our glue here and here, becomes the pocket for this page. So now we have all of these built-in pockets for each page set. Now, this is not going to work for me without a sturdy cover, so that's what we're going to add now. So my cover is going to actually be 2 different components, and I'm going to glue them differently than I might typically, just because I want to capture that tab of the remaining page that we just added into the cover so that it will be a full page. I have my first piece. This is 110-pound cardstock. It's 6 high by 12 wide. And then I have 2 additional pieces that are 6 high, but this time they're going to only be 11 wide and they're scored at 5.5. So you'll need 2 of those. I have my book cover measured just slightly less than the width of the book because I wanted those paper layers to show. And this was a good way to be able to get that whole cover out of one piece. So I'm going to first start by adhering my cover to this scored page. I'll take the tape off of one side. Definitely have to have your Tombow for this. And I'll line this up with the score line, keeping it straight and even across the bottom. So the next thing I'm going to do is bring back in this booklet. Remember that we have 8 pieces and we're working with the tab on the left-hand side. And I'm going to bring this edge up to the 6 1/8 inch score line so that we retain the 1/8 of an inch on the inside of the book. And I'll just line this up here and then fold it over. So now I have the outside of the page adhered to the flap, and you can see that I have added the remainder of the flap on the back has double-sided tape and also on the book cover as well. I'm going to come back in with a little additional Tombow. and then fold this over and keep everything nice and straight and even. So this is going to be our front cover. And I'm going to flip all of the remaining pages over and push that all the way back onto itself so that it will reveal the edge there. Bring my scoreboard back in. I'm going to bring the edge of that book right up to one of the score lines in the board and then crease it right there. This is going to give me a very nice crisp square edge along the outside. Go ahead and fold that over now. So I'm going to come in and add my double-sided adhesive tape along the spine where all of these score marks are. I'll pull the backing off of that tape, adding more Tombow, being careful not to get it too far over. Since we've already creased that and folded it, it should fall right into place. Remember to add pressure while that glue is setting up. So we're not going to glue this piece to the back of the book. We're going to glue our second folded cover piece to it. And I anticipated this being slightly less because there's a little bit of extra room taken up in the spine. I'm going to line up the edge of this with the outside edge of this, because if it extends a little bit to keep the page the same size, it's okay with me if it overlaps. So I'm just putting that there. Then I'll press that into the adhesive. Take the remainder of our backing off. A little bit more Tombow. Now fold this over, and this is going to act as our back cover. Press that into place a little bit, and the tape will hold it while the glue sets up. So now you can see we have our very sturdy, thick cover, and then we'll have all of our pages inside with the tabs and the pockets. So first, let's just go ahead and finish off the inside of that cover. I've got a couple of pieces left from my 12 by 12 pattern paper. I decided to use the more neutral side rather than the snowman, just to keep a little bit of it from looking less busy. And on the inside, I am choosing not to use my pink cardstock border. That's just because the edge of the page comes all the way to the end. I don't have a cardstock on this side, so it might look funny to have all of those borders showing over here. So I just went with the pattern paper, and the measurement is 6 by 5.5. It's going all the way over to the edge. Remember, we sandwiched that flap that would have been a pocket in between those cover layers. So now these will be two very nicely finished pages. And then the same for this back page, but we're going to not have the flaps. So this set of pages will not have a pocket. This is the only one that doesn't have a pocket, but this is the same measurement as the front, and that nice neutral kind of helps to balance out the smaller pattern from this pattern paper over here. Okay, what we want to do now is create a filler. This is going to be 1 inch deep. Now we've got to put things in here to fill the book up. So I'm going to show you my stack of inserts and journal cards, and you can see how thick that is. This is going to be so nice and chunky and sturdy. So the first thing I want to do is find my journal cards. I did have just enough of these from the 12 by 12 cut apart sheet for each of these pages. Remember, we have 8 pages, but we wind up with only 7 pocket pages, so I had 7 of these and that worked out perfectly. This is going to be a tuck spot, so let's skip the first page and then we'll just combine our journal cards with the background. It's going to be kind of a nice layering of all these patterns. I'm not worried about it being busy. This one is just, the design for this book was meant to be kind of more organic instead of super planned like my journals typically are. And I just wanted this to be more like it evolved. And so I'm going to just mix and match my journal cards as I go along here. I'm going to add my Tombow only to the left-hand side and the bottom, and I'm gonna be really careful again not to over glue, and this is going to become a tuck spot. So let's do that. If I flip it over, the glue will be on the top and the side. I'm going to share with you just one of these, and then I'll go ahead and finish this process off camera. So I'm coming in a little from the edge just so that it doesn't squeeze out. So one side and the bottom will hold the inserts in. I'm going to go pretty low on this so that there will be additional room in here for other flat keepsakes and mementos. So you're going to have an insert in this, but you can also tuck in some pictures or other little bits and pieces that you want to finish your book with. So this is another place where you don't have that double-sided adhesive. You're going to have to just hold this in place a bit so that you are certain that the glue has set up. So I'm going to continue with the remaining 6 journal cards or cut aparts, and then I will come back to you when those are completed. So I've got all of my tuck spot journal cards added on here. I'll go ahead and continue working on the cover of the book while the glue just really has a bit to finish drying before we add the inserts. But you can see that I've just kind of mixed and matched them throughout the book. So might as well put the back on now. I picked this really sweet all over, very whimsical sugar cookie pattern, and I'm using pink cardstock on the outside just to give it a more finished look. So the cardstock for the cover is going to be 5 3/8 wide by 5 7/8 inch high, and the pattern paper is 5 1/4 by 5 3/4, and that gives you the border of the base as well as the pink cardstock. So this is the time where you want to bring in your trim if you're going to have a ribbon closure, and I'm just picking this really sweet pink plaid from Really Reasonable Ribbon. I pulled off a fairly generous amount so that I can wrap it around and get a good size bow. I found my middle, and I've already added just a tiny bit of the double-sided tape. This will hold it in place while we add the cover on. So here is another of those super sweet little Christmassy village scenes. If anyone knows where this is in real life, I really want to go here, even if it means I have to have snow and cold. But this is like a very charming and whimsical place to be, and very festive. So here is my pattern paper and cardstock layer that is sandwiching my trim in between those layers. And I do have a layering pattern as well, just a bit of the offcut. I even liked this detail on the top. We're gonna cover the whole, but the packages will remain on the outside there. So I'll just line this up. It's cut to fit the width of the pattern paper. I have a small doily here. This is an older one from Cherry Lynn Designs. I looked it up and I wasn't able to find the link, but whatever circular doily that you have will work. And then here's my focal image. This was one of those cut apart journal cards. This was a 3x4 card. I cut it down just a little bit with a rectangle that had a curved edge and a little stitching detail. You don't need a die, you can just cut it to whatever shape you like, but I decided that even though this isn't a tag shape, I would make it a tag by including an eyelet here in the top and then working some twine through. I put all this up on a foam spacer so that we can build dimension. I'm just going to layer that over top of my doily. I'm gonna make sure I got that on square and straight. Okay, before we add any more of our layers on the cover, I want to add a couple of items for this very front and the very back page where we don't have our pockets. I thought it would be nice to include kind of a photo mat area for a special photo to be included. So this is the frilly lace square nested die from Gina Designs, and I picked the largest of that nested set, and I'm going to put it right in the middle. This is adhered with just double-sided adhesive tape, and then I'm going to top it with one of the offcuts from those pattern papers. I put that up on a spacer. That helps to fill. Remember, we've got the 1/8 of an inch worked into each of these for the spine. And this becomes kind of more of a special photo mat area. This is also pretty neutral, so if you wanted to journal on this and put your picture over here, that would work great because you would be able to see writing on there very easily. Let's do the same thing for the back page. Same doily or square die. Same pattern paper. I really like to get use out of those bigger size scraps. And that goes there. It's going to help to fill in some of that space. Okay, you know I'm going to add a fabulous flower arrangement. And here is that arrangement. This is the Cinch and Go Poinsettia. Use the same cardstock as the borders here so I know it coordinates. Then I've just got a smaller white flower here, twine, a die cut glittery star, some netting, and then 2 layers of some die cut foliage. Here is more of that plaid trim, and I just want to wrap the corner of my little snowman guy with that. Adding that with my hot glue, making sure that I have it positioned just where I want. Sometimes you have to go after the strings from that twine just to give it a little haircut and make it look a little bit nicer. Okay, now we're going to go back into the book. Remember that we have pockets for all of these pages on the side. And so I've created folded inserts for those. And this was a really good place to use up the rest of that 8x8 paper pad. I decided a 4x4 insert would be perfect because that would go through that paper and not create more additional scrap or offcuts. So the actual base for the insert is 65 pound weight cardstock. It's cut to be 4x8 and scored at 4. And then all the pattern paper layers are going to be 3 7/8 by 3 7/8. And I have them covered all around the front and the back just so that I could beef up the chunkiness of this book and go through more of those scraps. So you see how nicely that fits in there. And even though we didn't glue the back of the pocket to the page, it is glued to the spine. So nothing you put in here is going to fall out the back. So let's just mix and match these as we go along and find a nice combination. They're going to coordinate really well because they came from the same paper pad. So I don't think you could get this wrong, but maybe adjusting the scale of the print would help it to look a little bit more layered and less busy. Let's just keep working along. This is a good time for our question of the day. And this is more of a controversial question, I think, than most holiday questionnaires would be. So would you rather have your Christmas lights be multi or clear, and that is a hot topic in our house. We are a house divided here. I would really like to have clear, and Tech Hubby would really like to have multis, and I think we could have them both if you had the clear inside and the multi outside. It just looks a little bit more festive, and you're not competing with your decor when you have the colorful strands of lights. So let me know in the comments, are you team multi or team clear? I am not throwing any shade on the Tech Hubby for that. In fact, he just got me this cotton candy Rockstar energy drink because he is super supportive of this series, and he knows it takes a lot to produce a video every day. So thank you so much, Tech Hubby, for being very supportive and a great addition to our team here. And thank you so much for my favorite flavor of energy drink. So we've got all of our folded inserts added. We've got our photo mats added. One last thing to include are going to be some additional inserts. These are not folded. They are some more of my offcuts for those pages, as well as a little bit of the 8x8 paper pad. And these are 4x4 for the 110-pound cardstock base, 3 7/8 by 3 7/8 for the pattern paper. No pink border on these. And once again, let's just mix and match so that we get a nice combination. It tucks under here. There is a little bit of room here if you want to add a couple of pictures or something like that. There's just a tad bit of room in the pocket as well, but this is not gusseted, so you can't really like load it up. But this is going to be a great place to add pictures and journaling and all of the things that you want to include when you finish the book. I have one for each set of these pages, so let's tuck those in there as well. Kind of alternating them as I go along so that we get a good combination of those patterns. I think this looks pretty organic. I don't know that it looks super planned out as my flip books or mini albums typically do. So I think this will be a lot of fun to finish this. And boy, was I happy to go through so much paper. And that is all for my book. Let's go ahead and tie the trim here. This is going to get very chunky when you finish it, so it's going to have a lovely wedge shape, just how I like my minis. And you can see why I left that space between the tabs so that I could get my trim worked through there. Once you have the bow that you like, you can just go ahead and remove the excess trim so that you have a nice shaped bow. I've got a couple of last details here to finish this off. Some little charms, of course, I'm gonna add those with my hot glue. Tapping those cut strings with a button. I have room on this cover for some sequins, so let's add those now. More of that Tombow to stick these down. And before we go, let's just add a little bit of detail to our snowman with this diamond stickle so that it's extra festive and sparkly. I'm not going all over and crazy. I'm just adding some detail where there is already on the image, kind of reinforcing that pattern. So that's all for our chunky tab top folder mini album for day 6 of our 12 Days of Christmas in July series. Don't forget to come back tomorrow for day 7. If you enjoyed this tutorial, remember to comment, like, and subscribe. And you can find links for the products I mentioned, as well as for all our socials, in the description below. And as always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day, and I thank you so much for watching. Bye.